To eliminate odors without heavy, overwhelming scents? We get it. Introducing Febreze Light. It eliminates odors with no heavy perfumes and light scents you'll love. New Febreze Light.
Dragon Breath. Oh, let's see if this is really Dragon Breath or there's options. Okay, audio sleeve. Ooh, nice. Isotrill technically does resist Dragon Breath, but it is really squishy. And besides in this case, the Latios is essentially acting like a Dragonite, where except for it doesn't have the resist rock slide. It's gonna be able to pump out these Dragon Claws super super fast. You see, even though it's resisted, the extra is already at half. This is definitely gonna be a Jorva. See how much damage it does. Okay, well that was a spot on, but the Latios now half into the jam. Ooh, double fighting. Let's go. Fighting on fighting.
It's going to be a really interesting matchup as fighting isn't not very effective against its own typing, which does create all sorts of fun with counter usage as well as this rock slide. If not shielded, is going to hurt that Heracross a little bit more.
Yeah, since the fighting types, the Heracross does resist it due to the bug typing, but it's neutral to the rock slide.
Quick! The quicker picker-upper. Bounty. Your trade is sponsoring this video. This is a 4-bones rib roast, and as you can see, it is a beauty. And today we're going to be doing something I never thought it would happen, and that is to dry age it in Congo, aka seaweed. I have no idea how this is going to work, but I'll tell you one thing I'm super excited to find out. As you can see, seaweed comes dry. I mean, take a look at this stuff. If you've never seen it or used it, I know it can be intimidating. But let me tell you something, the Japanese have been using this for decades. And most importantly, this is what is MSG made out of. So I'm not only hoping that it works with the dry age, but it also creates something incredible. But that we're gonna find out together. So the first thing I did was to lay it down dry. Then I added my roast right on top, covered the whole thing with combo, and got my butcher's twine and started tying it up. But this did not work. Since combo is really hard and dry, it just breaks. It was not working whatsoever. And remember, whenever you dry aging, you want to have a nice tight seal. So I had to think on my feet and come up with a different solution. And that was to rehydrate it in water. I'm using cold water, by the way, not boiling water. The last thing we want is to cook the seeds as we put that hot thing on top. So using cold water, hopefully will just revive the seaweed itself. And after about 10 minutes on it, check it out. It is now perfect. So I went ahead and started the wrapping process. And this worked like a charm. I mean, I just kept putting layer after layer until I covered the whole thing. Once that was done, the only thing left to do was to go ahead and tie everything up so that I don't lose it through the dry aging process. I am not trying to make it super tight. My only goal is to make sure that it will not fall out. But once I was done with the tying, this is what it looks like. Now that looks like a big tamale. Now the only thing left to do is to put it on my regular refrigerator so that it can dry age for 35 days. Once the time was up, I took it out and checked out what it looks like. Everything seemed to work like a charm. It is super dry, there's no smell, and now I'm excited to open up and see what we got. So I first started by removing all of the butcher's twine. That was not a big deal whatsoever. But when I jumped into the seaweed, oh man, that's a different story. It is like duct tape, 100% glued to the meat. I mean, if I went full strength on it, the meat would just fall apart. Check this out. That's not what we want, so I had to really take my time and go nice and slow. Wherever I couldn't get it out by hand, I used my knife. This was tedious work, but at the same time, the smell that is coming out of this thing is amazing. Going into this experiment, I had no idea what to expect, but I'll tell you one thing right now, I am so happy I did it. Even though it took me a long time to take the whole thing out once I was done, this is what it looks like. And my friends, is 35 days dry aged beef in seaweed. Something you have never seen and you might never see again. And I mean, check out the fact. It is perfectly dry. That is perfection. I mean, there's almost no oxidation whatsoever. And most importantly, the smell that is coming out of this thing is phenomenal. Like every dry age, the next thing to do is to go ahead and remove all of the pellicles throughout the steak. They don't taste good, they don't look good, they just have to go. And once I was done with that, I was left with some beautiful steaks. I mean, this is dry age textbook right here. They smell wonderful, they look great, and most importantly, I hope they taste as good as they look. However, at the same time, you can see that I did not do a great job removing the pellicles between the bones. And I know that if I leave it will give a huge amount of dry age taste in the steak. So in order to avoid that from happening, I decided to remove it. It is pretty easy to do, just make sure that you're not cheap with it. Leave a little bit of meat on the bone because if you think I'm gonna throw that away, And as you can see, after removing the bone, I still have some beautiful steaks. The next thing to do is to go ahead and season them. And I am a huge fan of dry brine. Usually when you're cooking sous vide, there's no need for you to do it. But since this is the first time I'm dry aging seaweed, I want to run a different experiment. I'll be cooking 2 of them traditionally, and the other 2 I'll be doing in sous vide. And if there's one thing I have learned, nothing is better than dry brining a steak. That is just a fancy word to say put salt on it and let it rest in the refrigerator overnight. And if you think I forgot about the ribs, I did the same exact thing as I did with the steaks. I'm just going to be cooking them separately so that I do not have that overpowering amount of dry aged taste. But now that I got all of them ready, the only thing left to do is to put it on my regular refrigerator so that it dry brines for 24 hours. Once the time was up, I took them out and take a look at it. The salt is completely gone. That is a good sign because now we know that it penetrated nicely and deeply into the meat. And if you take a closer look on the fat, it did not penetrate. That's because salt does not penetrate fat. And the ribs looks just as good. For them, I kept it very simple. I just threw them directly inside of my oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I cooked them like this until I got a nice, beautiful brown color. So once I got the color that I was happy with, I threw them in aluminum foil, closed it all up, and put it back in the oven for 2 hours so that it can be nice and tender. Because now it was time for me to concentrate on the steaks. So I went ahead and finished the seasoning with a little bit of pepper and garlic powder. Nothing else. As I mentioned, 2 of them I'm going to be cooking sous vide. So I backed them up, vacuum sealed them, and they were ready for the water bath. The other 2, I took them immediately outside. I heated up my pan and threw it in there with a little bit of oil. My goal is to get a nice, beautiful crust. If there's one thing that I always require, is a crust on a steak. And keeping that pan under medium-high heat definitely does the job. Make sure you either use a cast iron skillet or a carbon steel one. If not, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a crust like this. And never forget to put a crust in the edges also. I mean, the better crust you have, the more amazing your steak will taste. And if you get a little bit of flare-ups, let it 35. And once I reach that temperature, take a look at this. That's what I'm talking about, friends. Medium rare, just the way I like it. Even though it has a good amount of gray band on the top, I don't even care. I can't wait to taste it. And the ribs? Oh, yes. This is what I was left with. I know that it's going to have a strong flavor of dry age, and I can't wait to find out if it's going to be good or bad. The only thing left for me to do is to go ahead and cook the sous vide steaks. And for that, I threw it in the water bath at 135 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. I know that sous vide will never disappoint. before moving forward, I want to thank Trade for sponsoring this video. I just love trying different coffees from around the country. And with Trade, now that our travels are limited, my coffee exploration can keep going. That's because with Trade, you can discover new coffees from the nation's best local roasters. Let me show you how it works. With Trade, I take a quiz and answer questions about how I like my coffee. And look at this. Trade matches me with my own personal selection of coffee. They ship it right to my door in a nice compostable packaging. And the best part, I never run out because I choose the delivery frequency. And as I try them, I rate them. Then Trade will continue to surprise me with new matches and coffees that I always love. And of course, always straight from roasters at peak freshness. This week I was excited with this smooth, medium blend mother tongue coffee. It's like a nice bittersweet chocolate with luxurious caramel and sweet hazelnut. I just love the hint of sweetness on this one. It's so good. The coffee is always roasted and shipped within 24 hours of ordering. And Trade guarantees that you will love your first coffee match. And don't worry, if you don't, they'll just ship out a different bag of coffee for free. My viewers will get 50% off their first bag when they sign up. This offer is valid for the first 100 people who click on the description. Just take the quiz, click on my link in the description, and enter code SUVI50. Free shipping is also included. Thanks Trade for sponsoring this video, and now let's get right back to it. I'm excited to find out how the sous vide version is gonna taste. We are hungry, it is ready, and it's time to take it out. Let's do it. If the smell is telling me anything, I'll tell you right now, it is phenomenal. And this is what you're thinking, right? It doesn't look good because it's great and it needs a crust, but for that, I'm gonna be using my flamethrower. So now I say, I know it doesn't look that good right now, but watch this.
Get wrecked.
All right, everybody, here we have our beautiful feast today, Mama. Huh?
What is that surprise?
This is the surprise in the end. Yeah? I want to know how they taste first, and if it tastes really good, then we got a little surprise over here. All right? Okay, so obviously, whenever I make two steaks, there's always an experiment.
It's triple experiment.
Triple, exactly. I want to know your honest opinion. Be very critical on this.
Get wrecked.
Let me know how it tastes. If you like it, if you hate it, all that good stuff. Enough talking. Let's give it a try.
Wow.
First thing I want you to. I can't hide it, even if I wanted to.
Wow, it's been a while.
Been a while with what, Mama? What are you feeling? What are you feeling? Tell me.
Feeling a little bit of dry age there.
Sometimes I do dry age experiment. They don't work very well. They are terrible, especially like the Nutella one that I did. Absolutely terrible. This is a wonderful. Oh my God, I'm so excited. What do you say about that?
Extra umami power.
Yes, Mama, it does have extra umami powder. It seems like I put MSG in there, but I did it.
Hurry.
It's squeezing your cheeks, Mama. Here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you already. It is dry age. You're absolutely correct.
I know it's dry.
Yes, you can tell right away.
away.
It is 35 days dry age, but I did it in kombu, aka seaweed. It's actually what MSG is made out of. The umami that you're tasting is because it was actually the kombu, because it does something very, very different to the palate, everybody. I understand that little squeezing, extra flavor that lingers in your mouth. That's what it does. Okay, before I go to the next one, let's try this one here.
I'm listening.
There's a difference between these two here. As you can see, this one here is a little bit more medium rare perfection, you know what I mean?
Okay.
This one here, you can tell that it's a little bit more. I want to know which one you like best. When you cook this way here, as you guys already know, it is quite different. Are you ready, Mama? Huh? It smells good. Let's try this one. Cheers, everybody. Talk to me, Mama.
This one is nicer.
You know when you're chewing, you don't want to swallow. You just want to like.
It's like the flavor is more mature.
This one hit me on the right spot, Mama. It's like, It's like the flavor got enhanced there. You guys know why? I'll tell you right now, Mama. This one I just cooked it in the oven and on the pan. I cooked this one here sous vide. All right? Yeah, you can tell right immediately. I don't even need to tell you. The flavor intensified. Look, I'm still. I don't want to swallow. You know when? You know when?
I swallowed to make room for some more. That's all.
What happens is whenever you consume something, it just concentrates that flavor a little bit extra more. Even though it's perfectly cooked medium rare, it just like you smoke ribs. When you smoke ribs and then you cook them sous vide, the smoky flavor is intense, really, really intense.
What?
Flavor already went penetrated inside, and then when it was coming out, it
No
just
hydropump?